Why, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the GSl-English Podcast. My name is, of course, Gideon, and in this week's episode, we are joined by the lovely Gemma from English with Gemma, and we talk about a wide range of different topics, from living in Bermuda, life in England, studying in Manchester, theatre, acting. And we also talk about the difficulty we can have mentally when learning and speaking a new language. And it's a very interesting and hopefully encouraging discussion that you'll come away just feeling a little bit more confident in speaking English. And Gemma gave some really good insights into why we don't need to be scared or worry too much about what everyone else thinks, and just enjoy it. So it was a brilliant discussion. It was an absolute pleasure to have Gemma as a guest. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea and enjoy my chat with Gemma.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Gemma. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks, Gideon. Thanks, first of all, for having me. I'm so happy to be here and to get this opportunity to chat with you a little bit. I'm so happy to finally be meeting you. I think we've kind of, I don't know how long we've known each other on Instagram. I think 2021 was the first time that we kind of chatted a bit on there, but yeah.
I think because I have the impression that we kind of started kind of taking social media seriously, maybe around the same time.
Yes, I actually I don't even remember when I started my account. I think it was 2020. Like it was at the beginning of the pandemic. So I think we kind of started around the same time. Yeah.
Exactly. There's so many kind of English or any social media started during COVID.
Yeah. I remember like I saw a Spanish teacher based in Barcelona, and I remember thinking, maybe I could do that, but for English teaching. And I had no idea how inundated the field was. And I was blown away by how many creators were out there and the community that I now have with like other teachers and stuff. It's really cool. And I had the time on my hands to do it during COVID. So yeah, I kind of just started up. Is that when you started as well? Like, and did you start teaching online during COVID too?
So I was teaching online just before COVID, when I kind of started teaching online, and then pandemic hit. I think kind of bored like everybody else and thought, you know what, I've got a social media page, but it just kind of, it took off from there. And I think that was where I think we kind of first got into. I was thinking, one of the coolest things about it is the amount of people you connect with, but
so
never
many people
get to talk with. Like
it's
this.
So nice that that's why it's so cool to do something like this. And I might start doing something similar on my YouTube channel. I only started about a year ago, but I've never done any type of chat like this with another teacher. But I hope that people enjoy listening to like different accents and real life English conversations and stuff. I think it's really cool. So
and that's actually how I started this. I was talking with exactly the same, a teacher that I'd just been talking with for a while. And then I said, do you mind if I recorded us chatting?
Yeah.
Kind of one thing led to another.
It's such a good idea. Yeah.
It works well. But you should, definitely go for it. So where are you now?
So at the moment, I'm actually in Bermuda. I'm Bermudian, born and raised. But up until September, I was living in Spain. So from 2018 to 2023, I was in Madrid. And I'll just give you like a little quick rundown of my life quickly. Born and raised in Bermuda. I left Bermuda when I was 14 to go to boarding school. I don't know if you're really familiar with like north of England that much, but have you ever heard of a place called Barnard Castle or Darlington?
Darlington, I know.
Most people know Darlington more than Barnard. So Barnard Castle's right next to Darlington. And I went to a boarding school there. Then I went to university in Manchester, Salford, so not like Manchester, but neighboring, basically. Have you heard of it?
I have, yeah. Wow.
Oh, cool. So and then I studied theater and performance there. Then I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, right? So I was 21 years old and I was graduating, and I thought, oh my God, I don't think I want to be an actress. But I had never really thought of what else I could do. So then I started kind of looking into like maybe studying a postgraduate, like a master's in like English literature or linguistics. And then I decided not to do that. My mom, actually, she was the one that suggested me to study a TEFL, so teach English as a foreign language. And yeah, I went to Madrid in 2018 to study my TEFL course. It was a 6-week, super, super intensive course, but it was super fun. I got to meet a lot of different, people from different cultures, and everyone was in the same boat, learning how to be an English teacher. And then, yeah, I started teaching in academies at first for the first 2 to 3 years. Then COVID hit. And then I started teaching online, and that's when I started English with Gemma, and it kind of just took off from there. And now I'm fully remote, fully like digital nomad, can just take my computer and teach my classes online. And it's the dream. Like, I love it. I love my job. I love teaching online, and yeah, that's
Isn't it amazing how just a little, well, not a little, but just a little decision like that,
totally,
just so life-changing.
My whole life, the trajectory of my life was like completely decided by that moment of being like, am I going to go down the theater path and do auditions and go through all this like stress of trying to like make it in the acting world, or am I going to use my acting background to be creative and apply it to teaching, which I never thought was possible. I was like, oh God, how am I going to use this useless degree? And then, yeah. What did you study in university, by the way? Sorry, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course. So I actually, again, my story is a long one. So I actually started off, I was a builder in England. As a few of the subscribers might know, I was a builder in a family building business. And once I met my wife, who was in Dominican Republic at the time, cutting a really long story short, I ended up moving out there, and she had her qualification. So started teaching, loved it. So I actually did my bachelor's degree online during COVID.
Amazing. Love that.
Yeah.
What a big like life change, like such a career change and everything.
Yeah. Wow. It's kind of the same as you. It was never the plan. It just kind of that way.
It chose me. I didn't choose it.
Yeah. It's sort of one of those weird. I could never have written that I was going to get into teaching.
No, I hated all my teachers in school. I was a horrible student. I was very rebellious. Like any of my teachers will tell you, like I was not a good student. And I remember my geography teacher in the UK. I was graduating like high school, and she said, you should be a teacher. And I was like, oh, shut up. No way. And she was like, yeah, you should teach. Like you would be a great teacher. And lo and behold, she was right. So yeah, I think that sometimes it kind of just chooses you, and that's really cool. I didn't know that that's how you got into it.
Well, yeah, in a minute, I really want to kind of talk about that connection between, creating, performing and translating that over to teaching. That's a really interesting idea and concept, but
yeah,
really intrigued about your life in England.
Yeah, so 8 years. 8 years. Yeah, so the UK, so I don't know if you know much like about like Bermuda, but basically when you're born in Bermuda, you can apply for British citizenship because it's an overseas British territory. So I actually have 3 passports because I'm half Italian. So my dad is fully Italian, so I have an Italian passport, a British passport, and a Bermudian. And I am incredibly grateful because, some people don't even have 1 passport. So it's just, that's been life-changing as well because, I can live in Spain, with Brexit and everything, it gets a little bit complicated. But yeah, basically, sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, I was just fascinated by that 3 passports.
I distracted myself with that. Living in the UK.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So living in the UK was kind of like a no-brainer for me because of my British passport. And then like the education system in Bermuda is a little bit like rudimentary. So I kind of just wanted to study my GCSEs and my A-levels. 6th form, secondary and all that, like in the UK. And my stepmom is from Newcastle, so that's kind of why I ended up in the north. And then yeah, it was weird because like people didn't accept me like as a British person because of my accent. So they hear me and they'd be like, "You're so American," but I don't know anything about the United States. I've only been like a handful of times. Bermuda is very not the States, but it's also not the UK. So I was in this weird like limbo of like not fitting in, and never really feeling like I was British, but also not feeling American. Like I'm Bermudian, but yeah, I don't know. It was interesting, but I love England. I love the UK, and I still have, you know, loads of friends from boarding school and also then university. Love Manchester as a city. That was great. So the only thing is the weather, man. You gotta sort that out, you British people.
I'm waiting for it the day, because I mean,
when is it gonna like?
It's just ridiculous. I think as British people, just as you get older, every year I've realised I just lose a little bit of hope in the weather.
Yeah, you just stop caring.
Yeah, there was always that hope that maybe next year will be better, and it's not.
You guys always get like a summer heat wave though, and then everyone goes out in the beer gardens and starts drinking cider and like
guys walking down the streets without t-shirts,
no shirts on.
You know.
Yeah.
So that must have been, that's quite a cultural change, isn't it? At a young age, that's quite a big.
14, yeah. It was interesting. It definitely was like character building. Like I can look at it in two ways. I can look at it very negatively, because, you know, I struggled a lot with like my mental health throughout that time in my life. I was a teenager. I was in a different country. I felt like no one understood me, and I was trying to be all mysterious and whatnot. And so, yeah, I can look at it on that hand and be like, oh, it was depressing. But then I can also look at it and think all the fond memories and the friends and, you know, the independence that I gained from kind of just being thrown into the deep end. And, you know, I was taking planes by myself from a young age. I was doing my own laundry. I was cooking. I was like cleaning. And then the transition from like university life and then adulthood was much easier. So if I could do it again, I would do it all the same, because I think it definitely was a growing experience for me. So yeah.
That's really interesting, because it is true, isn't it? Any situation you can take from it what you want, you know, whether that is positive or negative. I guess there's both to any situation.
Yeah, you have to look at both and be like, okay, there were some crappy parts, but there were also some really great parts, and they don't necessarily like cancel each other out. You can just take the good and the bad and then choose which one you're going to pay more attention to, and then let that kind of decide how you want to continue on in life. Because, you know, there are a lot of things, like I have actually a chronic illness that I've had for the last 7 years, which, you know, it affects my entire body, and it's kind of like an autoimmune disease, and basically my whole body like hates itself and is attacking itself. But yeah, like I'm in pain a lot of the time and I don't feel good a lot of the time, but I've kind of learned how to just deal with it and get on, and it's made me a stronger person. And, you know, nobody would ever guess by looking at me that I was chronically ill. You know, everyone says you're full of energy and you look so healthy and you're young, and it's one of those things that they're literally called like invisible illnesses, because you would never know. So yeah, I think everyone's had these kinds of hardships in life. And I think what really defines you is not what happens to you. It's like how you choose to just like move on from it, or like let it define you. Because I was like, I'm not going to let this ruin my life. Like there are people who are in wheelchairs with this same disease that I have. So, you know, I consider myself lucky. And yeah, that's kind of just how I choose to look at it.
Well, that's a great example. I'm sorry you have to live with that, but that's a great example.
It is what it is.
I mean, I can't imagine, you know, that must really come with struggles. But I guess, you know, as you said, you know, people always say, oh, well, you're happy, you're this and that. But sometimes that must take a lot of effort. You know, people don't see the effort that it's taken to feel that way that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
With teaching, it's really hard. I'm sure that you can relate. Like teaching is so much, it can be very performative. Like, of course, I try to be authentic, but a lot of it is like trying to be engaging and trying to get your students. And that's why, you know, I like using my theater background and stuff like that. But it helps, because those days that I'm feeling horrible, I can still be like, hi, how are you? You know? Yeah, but teaching is very, it's very energy draining, but it's also gives you a lot of energy. There's never been a time in my life where I've taught a class and I felt less energized after, and I felt like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. Every time I feel like crap and I want to cancel, I just do it anyways. And at the end, I'm smiling and I feel like I had a shot of espresso, because my students just give me this like amazing like feeling, and it's so rewarding. And I'm sure you know what it feels like when your student makes a breakthrough or something like that, and you just feel so like fulfilled. And like you said, probably building and being a builder, maybe you didn't feel like as fulfilled as you do like with your other career path of teaching. Like, I don't know if that was something that you feel.
I completely agree. And I the way you come away from a class, you sometimes know whether you've done a good job and a bad job. But as you say, it's more than just relating information teaching, isn't it? It's more just, these are the facts, present them. It's the way that you do it. You're doing it with a passion. Then you do come away feeling quite alive, energetic after it. I'm really intrigued by your theatre kind of background, because I absolutely love the theatre. I have since I was a kid. I've never been a performer. I love music.
Interesting. But you just like watching, you just like going to the theatre and stuff like that?
I was obsessed with Bugsy Malone.
Oh my God, really?
I was obsessed. And I remember there's a character in Bugsy Malone called, I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't, but I know of it. It's all like gangsters and stuff.
Yeah. Right? And I remember I played this guy called Doodles in it.
So you did?
Yeah. He had one line.
Oh.
But I can tell you, I nailed that line.
You gave that line. Yeah. You gave it your all.
Yeah. And I remember I was supposed to walk off stage. Just one line. Come on, say it.
You probably were milking your moment. You were like, I'm not leaving.
I stayed on the stage. And
How old were you?
Oh, I must have been like 8 or 9.
That's hilarious. You were like, you can't take me alive.
Yeah. This is my time to shine. How dare you?
That's amazing. Yeah. That's funny.
Where did kind of that love of, or of course you studied that in Manchester University, but where did that start and how did it progress?
I'm actually like the opposite of you. So I never had like a childhood like love of theater. Right. I was in a few things in school. I was in Annie, the musical, Once on This Island, another musical. And so it was a lot of like musical. I always liked singing. That's another one of my hobbies, singing. And I just recently started playing the ukulele a few years ago. And yeah, I've always kind of liked the musical aspect, but the acting, like I wasn't, my older sister was actually more like the actress when we were in school. And then, I don't know, in boarding school, in sixth form, you can choose like some subjects, like I chose theater, geography, and history. So like theater, I loved it. Theater studies, every time I went to that class, it was like a game. It was like fun. It was like the boring, mundane school day and then like theater studies. And I loved that feeling. And I was like, I want more of this. So then I started getting more into like actually acting and like studying plays and how to script write and all the different technical aspects and stuff. And then I applied to Salford University, and my degree was called Theater and Performance Practice. And it wasn't just like the acting, it was all the other stuff that goes into it. Like I said, like script writing, and you could choose your different like things. There was physical theater, so like how you use your body, obviously, and dance. So it was really cool. It was a very fun degree where it was still hard because there was a lot of rehearsing time and studying, but there was never a written exam. There were papers and essays, things like that, but I never had to do a written exam. And for me, that was amazing because I really don't like exams. And that's kind of how I just kind of got into it randomly. And it's
just another example, isn't it? If you can never kind of write exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was super random. And then, when I graduated, I was like, I realized that theater was like, for me, a passion. It wasn't something that I wanted to be my career. I have friends from uni who are now, I actually have a friend who he was recently on Coronation Street.
Wow.
Yeah. Ross Thompson, shout out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to Google that after this. Ross Thompson.
Ross, yeah. So he was my best friend in university. And I always thought, I looked at him and some other people that were in my classes, and I thought, you guys are going to make it with acting because you have the drive and you have this like, I want to be an actor. I didn't have that. I had the passion about acting, but I did not have the, hustle and struggle and work as a waiter and then do auditions in the nighttime. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So that's when I got into my TEFL and all my English teaching stuff, and I just kind of broke off from that. Yeah, because I just couldn't deal with the rejection and the auditions and all that stuff.
Well, it is a lot. I mean, not that I know anything
hard.
about it, but it is.
No, but you can imagine it's really, demanding.
It's grueling, and it doesn't stop, does it? And it's just constant. As you say, you're facing rejection and then a lot of late nights.
You have to be a very strong person.
Yeah. So so you kind of went from that starting thought, I'm going to take this more into teaching, more into the content. Did you go into the thing of, right, this will be more of a performance? Did you go into an idea of being more educational? Like, how did it start?
So when I first started Instagram, like I told you, I saw this Spanish teacher from Barcelona doing it, and she was just kind of like, talking at the camera, giving little tips and tricks. So I never really went into it with an idea of like what I wanted it to look like. It kind of, again, like we've been talking about, kind of fate and things happening like just by the way that they're supposed to. And I never went into it with like a real idea. It kind of just evolved into what it is now. So I started with very basic videos, just kind of 5 ways to say blah, 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 or, conditionals, whatever. And then I kind of started dabbling, experimenting with making characters, and then also doing like multiple different, shots and like writing scripts. So every time I have more than one character, I'll write a script on my phone, because if not, I get totally lost. And then, I kind of just really liked seeing like, how can I make this fun and creative and different? I think there are a lot of English teachers, who are doing that kind of thing with characters and making their videos funny. Excuse me. But I just want it to be dynamic and engaging for people. And sometimes I go through phases where I don't feel very creative, and you can tell it reflects in my Instagram, where I'm just like, okay, we're going back to basics. Here are some English tips. And, sometimes people just want that, so I think I like to use a mixture of like my funny, like creative videos with multiple different characters. And then I just like to do like a simple, like one of my recent videos, it was 5 ways to say I'm leaving. Like, I'm out of here. I've got a dip. That video was, I haven't had a video do this well in a really long time, because you know how the algorithm is and things go up and down. It's almost on like 200K views. And I'm like, for what? And I realized I think it's because it's short. It's like 10 seconds long. And people sometimes just want like, give me the information. Well,
we live in a I want it now society, don't we? So I want it now, I want it quick. That's one of the difficult things, I think, when you choose social media as your kind of career or path. It's the ups and downs, and the reality is you never know what's going to do well.
The algorithm is totally random.
I don't believe there is an algorithm. I'm just done with it.
I think it's all just like bots, like robots making decisions. And but honestly, like, I think it's also very like disheartening sometimes, like because we are the face of our thing. Like, it's like, GSL English, like English with Gideon and English with Gemma. We cannot, for example, if you're selling a product, like you're selling clothes, your face isn't on there and you're not part of the brand. So you might take it to heart, but it's not really you. But whereas like we literally are the product, like we're selling like ourselves and our personality and our English classes. And so when things don't do as well as we want them to, and videos, I try not to be like, I'm not here for the views and the likes. I want to genuinely help people. And I hope that people can see that I'm, authentic. But it is really hard to not take it to heart when a video, you spend so much time. And I don't think people see like all the editing, all the, camera change. Just before we started this, we were having technical problems, and we had to, change some things. And a lot goes into this. And sometimes it's disheartening, but I've tried to kind of remove myself from that judgment and just realize like, it is what it is. I do what I like doing. So sometimes I post a video and I'm like, I didn't actually think that was funny, or I didn't like that. So I'm like, you know what? Next time I'm just going to do what I want to do, because at the end of the day, you've got to do things for yourself, or else you're going to go crazy if you're trying to please other people all the time.
And I think that comes across really nicely in your Instagram or your forms of social media. It always comes across authentic. And I think people can relate to that. Sometimes you can tell. I mean, everyone has their own styles, but I think a style you can never go wrong with is just being authentic and doing
yourself.
Yeah.
And I definitely think like from from, you know, what I've seen on your Instagram and who is sitting in front of me right now, like I can say the same about you. Like you feel like a just genuine, like nice person. And, you know, I don't think you seem like a lot of, I think a lot of people can sometimes seem like they're like playing a character. And that's what unless I am literally playing a character on my Instagram for a funny video, I always want people to, the Gemma that is on English with Gemma and the Gemma that's here like chatting with you, it's the same. And I think that's really important, especially if you're trying to, you know, get people to trust you and hopefully take some classes with you. You just want to, what you see is what you get. And I think that's, if you do that, you can't go wrong. Like just be yourself. Because
yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's kind of interesting, that idea, you know, you said, because for you sometimes it's developing these characters, which I think is a great way of teaching, because people can they can put themselves in the situations, or it's that entertainment kind of value as well as educational. I've never had the confidence to do that. I just thought, oh, I don't think I could do it. But
really?
it got me thinking, you know.
I think you could. You just do it, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, you might feel really cringy and stupid at first. And that's the thing. You've just got to get over that, because you are your own worst critic. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, it's really hard. Sometimes I take a video and I'm like, ooh, that was like cringy and not cool. But people are in the comments like, oh my God, that was so funny. And, you know, just dabble with it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You could just even try, you know, just having two different like characters. I don't know if you have before in your videos had like two.
I've never done it.
It doesn't even have to be a character. It can literally just be you. You can be like, say something wrong, and then the other person who's also you could just be like, oh, by the way, that's not how you pronounce it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be like totally different, but yeah, it just
keeping it up, isn't it? It's keeping it fresh and new. Good idea, kind of
cool.
yeah, exactly. So that idea of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, I think that's something that all kind of teachers try and push their students to do, you know, is get out of your comfort zone.
It's the hardest thing, confidence. That's the thing students struggle with the most. It's confidence, speaking English. Literally. I don't know if you find that with your students, but 80% of their problem is not actually their English level or their ability to speak English. It's the lack of self-confidence and just lacking in believing in their abilities. And a huge part of what I do, or what I try to do, if my student is interested in it, it's actually a little bit of like life coaching and kind of like therapy. And sometimes we literally have a class where we talk about, we kind of break down why are you feeling this way? Why are you feeling insecure about your English? Did somebody say something to you? Did someone make fun of your accent? Like, let's like take it back and see like why. Sometimes there's not even an isolated event. Sometimes it's just the general feeling of like being inadequate in a different language. And I can relate, because I speak Spanish as a second language, and I feel stupid all the time when I speak Spanish. I make mistakes all the time. But I think it's teaching your students how to just laugh at their mistakes, learn from them. And yeah, sometimes I do lessons about self-confidence and how to kind of get out of your comfort zone. And sometimes we're not even focusing on learning English. We're focusing on mindfulness and, you know, trying to break apart some of those issues going on in their head.
I do agree that, you know, if you're trying to teach someone to communicate in another language, it's not just about vocabulary. It's not just about grammar, about sentence structure. It's about having the mental power to do it. And you spoke earlier, you know, about we're often our own worst critic. And I think that is so true when it comes to speaking another language. We put ourselves under a microscope.
Yep. And I think it's like that with everything in life. Like, we always think that people are judging us so much more than they are. And that's like something I've learned is like, you can just tune that stuff out as well. And it doesn't say anything about you. It only speaks to the other people who are judging you or making fun of you, because that's their insecurities and they're projecting them onto you. And that's something that I really struggled with when I first started my Instagram. I got so much hate. I don't know if you've ever really dealt with like hate before, but I got like, I think it's just part of being on the internet, right? Okay. Yeah. So it's not just me.
No, I've had people I've had messages say, I just don't like your face.
I've got, you're ugly, you're fat.
Oh, wow.
Cut your hair. wear makeup, don't wear makeup, dress better, don't dress better, cover your shoulders, cover your and I think especially there's this added element of being like a young woman, you know, not saying it's not hard for you as well, but there's definitely this thing of like people think that we owe them pretty and beautiful, and it's like, I'm here to teach you, I'm not here to look good. And if I'm dressing a certain way, I'm doing that for myself. It's got nothing to do with you. And I've had so many men, mostly in my direct messages, saying super inappropriate things. And that's just something I've been dealing with from the beginning. I used to get so riled up. By the way, for anyone watching, angry. I used to get so angry, and I used to reply to every comment and blah, 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 and screw you, blah, blah, blah. And I realized like that was literally like so much energy on my part. And now I have so much more peace because you know what I do? Guess what I do? I block them.
Yeah.
I don't care. I do not give people the platform to share their ideas because they're not idea. It's just, it's criticism, it's hate, it's derogatory, it's inappropriate. So I just tune all that out. And so I think what I'm trying to get at is you can do the same thing for people who you feel like are judging you for speaking English, for any hobbies that you're doing and posting on the internet, like anything like that. Tune it out, cut those people out, block them. You know, we have the blocking feature on Instagram for a reason. Just block them, block out the haters, man. Like seriously.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think especially even like when you're trying to speak another language and perhaps you have had a negative experience with someone else, which I think we're all human. That can really knock your confidence. But you know, I always say to my students, if someone came to you with a very limited knowledge of your language and just said hello, but they pronounced it wrong, as a decent human, you wouldn't point the finger, laugh at them and say, go on, jog on, ever, you know. So the people that perhaps have made us feel that way, that they're a real minority, you know, and it's just I always try and say, you know, don't waste opportunities to practice, to speak English just because of worrying about what others think, you know, just go for it.
Go for it. Exactly. And that's another thing. Like a lot of people ask me in my comments or my direct messages, how can I improve my speaking? I don't want to speak. Like I'm like, you have to. It's like asking, how can I get better at kicking in football and then never practicing kicking? Like just watching videos on YouTube about how to kick. You've got to physically get your foot on that ball and get that muscle memory. It's the same thing for speaking English or learning grammar or pronunciation. You've got to actually like do it. You can't just watch a bunch. And while it's great that we give, you know, free content on the internet for people to help them, that's step one. That's just like a, you know, auxiliary kind of thing to do. You also have to actually take classes or find a speaking club or do something active, and don't think about like, oh, I'm going to sound stupid or I'm going to make mistakes. You know what? You're going to make mistakes, but that's how you learn. Like you've got to make those mistakes. You know how many times I said super inappropriate things in Spanish by a mistake because there are some words
very
that
similar.
are very, very similar. Do you speak Spanish, by the way?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
No. Okay.
That's what we were just talking about.
Because
but your wife speaks Spanish, no?
she's much better than me. I always say when it comes to learning languages, do as I say, not as I do. I have done because
you're so busy teaching people how to learn languages that we can't do it ourselves. So.
Yeah, well, you've done it. You learned Spanish.
Well, that's because I was in Spain for 5 years. It was kind of hard not to. You know, it's much easier. I say that to a lot of people. When my students are hard on themselves and they're like, I'm not making the progress that I want to make. I'm like, you're not in an English-speaking country and you're trying to learn English. You're having 2, 1, maybe sometimes 3 hours of classes with me. But, you know, 95% of the time you're speaking your native language. So it's much easier if you live in the country that, you know, has your target language that you're learning. But it's not necessary to learn the language, but it definitely helps.
Definitely. So that immersion kind of helped you to really speak fluent.
Yeah, I was so my ex-boyfriend's parents were completely Spanish, didn't speak a lick of English.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of just had to, figure it out. And then doctor's appointments, that was another weird thing for me. Like you would think that doctors would be like the one like group of people that would probably speak English fluently, right? Because a lot of like medical journals and medical publications are in English. Nope. Every time I go to the, I'm like, ¿hablas inglés? Oh, no puedo hablar inglés, lo siento. Like, I can't speak Spanish. I'm so sorry. I'm like, you're a doctor. So I would have to go with my chronic illness and name these crazy symptoms and crazy like medicines and all sorts of like complex vocabulary in Spanish. And I used to like cry before every doctor's appointment.
Oh,
And
wow.
then little by little, I got more confidence and I used to make notes. I used to go on Google Translate and like write down, and my ex-boyfriend helped me. He was, Spanish native speaker. But those like nerve-wracking, tear-jerking situations of being in a doctor's office feeling completely lost, again, character building helped me learn a language, So it's taking those negative experiences and seeing how that's really like helped me progress with my Spanish and stuff. So yeah, I was kind of thrown in at the deep end, but if you can get classes, like definitely that helps.
And I think as
I
well,
never
like,
took a Spanish class though.
really, because I was thinking, you kind of as well, every time, say you go to an appointment and anything in any language you're learning, and you just get a little thing right, or you use a new word, or you
You're like, I
ask a
can
new
do this.
question, it's a win. And if you can keep getting those wins, it's like, okay, I've got this, I can do it.
Mhm. You've got to prove it to yourself. That's the only way that you can get that confidence. Because a lot of people, a lot of my students who are lacking that confidence, they're like, but how can I gain it? It's like, it's throwing yourself into these scary situations, making a lot of mistakes, but then, doing things right. And then saying, oh my God, I did that super scary thing. It wasn't that scary. I got through it. And then you've actually created new networks in your brain, new connections where your brain has been presented with a scary situation. You feel triggered. You've got this emotion of fear, anxiety, doubt. And then you have the action of speaking or getting something right. And then it sends this positive feedback loop into your brain. And then the next time when you go, maybe your brain isn't going to give you that fear, that anxiety response. It's going to give you like oh, we can probably do this,
Yeah.
And then little by little, that's how you make new connections in your brain. That's how you form confidence. So yeah, I'm really interested in like psychology and the power of the mind and everything when it comes to life in general, but also like learning languages and confidence and
Yeah, it's part of it.
chronic illness, pain. Like it's part of everything. The way that we think just shapes our reality completely. And I'm sure
I couldn't agree
you
more.
can see that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't agree. And I think that's a really interesting direction that chat went in.
Sorry, I feel like
No,
I'm just blah blah.
no, I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking, you know what? I think this will, I mean, for those that are listening or watching now, that sometimes you just need to hear that, that it's all right. Just relax, kind of just calm. Everything's going to be all right. Just keep going for it. Keep trying. Make mistakes, but just work through it, and build your mental strength as well as your actual English language
The
skills.
best way out is always through. That's the quote that I love. It's
Oh,
like you've got to go.
yeah.
The best way out is always through. Like you've got to go through it to get out of it. So
I'm kind of stronger. Gemma, that was an absolute pleasure. I could honestly, I say this I could talk to you for ages, but I know we've both got things to
we can
get.
do it again sometime. Once I get my YouTube channel sorted, we can do this on my channel, and
definitely
great.
And to all of those, if you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify or Apple, please, I would highly recommend,
That's exciting.
Yeah, follow Gemma on Instagram.
English with Gemma.
English with Gemma. I'll put all the information below because, as I say, I think following different styles of English teaching is brilliant, but particularly when
different accents.
Yeah, and those authentic teachers that are genuine, it comes across, and I think it's the best way of learning. So yeah. Definitely.
Hey, thank you so much, Gideon. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really, really appreciate you having me today.
It was nice to finally talk to you.
Yeah, finally.
Right. Have a great afternoon.